fascinating to me.
Ben, are you gonna set up the Pinkerton's Ghost Live Journal anytime soon?
Oh yes, someday soon. Hello, Megabuster
Pinkerton's.
Shepherd, and welcome to
Hey,
another
Mega.
another episode of Sunday Superversive Livestream. I am your host Benjamin Wheeler, and I'm here with my co-host Anthony Marchetta, and we're joined by our multiple-time guest appearance, Cirsova, to talk about his latest episodes and about the betrayal of MySpace in the music industry. How you doing, Cirsova?
Hey, hey,
Eh.
I'm doing all right. It's been a long weekend.
No, I understand entirely. All right.
So,
Yeah, you gonna
yeah, now that the show's live, or it's like, whoa.
right? It's like we were just chatting. I decided to start it. It's all right. But that MySpace story you
We
promised me,
All
Cursova.
we
right,
were
yeah.
just talking about how
Tell you
the
about how.
Pinkerton's Ghost Tumblr was coming soon.
Anthony, that's actually going to happen in a little bit. You I gotta hit that SJW fan base. They're rabid.
The Pinkerton's Ghost Friendster.
Oh
Pinkerton's Ghost, the AIM chat channel.
yeah, Pinkerton's ghosts, the Bumbler account.
Jeez. But yeah, the
Sean
MySpace
Russo's
betrayal.
Sean Russo on Match.com.
All right, all right, go for it. Tell me the story. I'm
It's been so long now. I can't remember the exact year that it happened. It was probably like 2000, late 2010 or 11. But there'd been big deals with MySpace having a partnership with Sony or something. So you ended up with all of these ads just blasted everywhere for Selena Gomez, and they were trying to make the site more focused towards pumping corporate pop music into the faces of the regular account users. And what they ended up doing in the process of the revamp of the site is they stripped the key search features that a lot of people in the local indie music scene were using. Because it used to be if you had a MySpace band account, you could tag three different genres of music. And there were search features that let you search by music genre by state. So if you were a local indie promoter and said, all right, I'm trying to put together a bluegrass show, you could search for all bluegrass bands in your state, browse through all of them, listen to their music, and send out direct messages to whoever you're like, oh, wow, your bluegrass is really good. Don't get on that show. If you're putting out a metal compilation, you could search for all the metal bands in a given state. And it was great because you had direct contact. It was built-in messaging system. It was all the PR tools that you needed if you were a promoter, a small label, or an indie musician. Then they had the bright idea to get rid of those things. So you could no longer search for bands by genre. You could no longer search for bands by location.
That
So all of a
sounds
sudden,
incredibly unintelligent.
yeah. So all of a sudden, all of the power users of the site just were completely SOL. Like you couldn't use MySpace to find new music. You couldn't use MySpace to do organizing and promoting. They got rid of the messaging, the email feature, and replaced it with just sort of a direct message type system. And it was just it was awful. And when they did that, all the bands left. All the bands left, all the promoters left, all the labels left, and that was what killed MySpace. It wasn't, oh, Facebook is the new cool thing. It's that they took away the tools of their power users and completely revamped the site towards something that nobody wanted. Nobody wanted it, nobody used it, and it just kind of died on the vine.
So essentially, they didn't honor their core constituents and just let it go to pot.
Yeah, yeah. Well, because they thought that people were there to make connections, with other people and not, you know, they it was essentially a website that allowed you to dump your own custom CSS and have your own crappy little blog, and it didn't have to be hosted. But again, most of the people who were using it on the regular tended to be musicians, people following musicians, and people in the music industry. And so by getting rid of the tools that made it useful to those people, everybody who just wanted to interact with their friends and be like, "Oh, I'm eating chicken on the toilet," they moved over to Facebook and Twitter.
That makes sense. And for the record, I was eating chicken before we got here. It's a very
Or eating
important
it on the
factoid.
toilet.
Which honestly, that's a pretty good story to start us out on. It's a very true statement. A lot of these places that we're seeing with the downfall of literature, of movies, of all this stuff, people aren't honoring the core concept. Sorry, the power users, as you used, they aren't honoring their core audience. Even Joseph Campbell, for all his mistakes, give or take, still honored, the kind of autistic engineering guys who love reading stories about engineers who solve the problems and get the hot MILF. So, it's, I'm referring to Isaac Asimov, Nemesis. But, if we don't even have that, it's honestly, you're just going to lose money on things. You're going to lose your power, you're going to lose your prestige, and eventually fall away. So tell us about the new magazines of Cirsova and how they are, quite frankly, some of the best in the pulposphere. Pulprev? I like saying pulposphere now that I've said that.
We like Pulposphere too. It's more encompassing than just Pulp Rev, I think.
Yes, the pulposphere. Actually, I was looking up. We were talking about Anthony and I were talking about how great the first story in the fall, is it the fall?
Winter 2020.
The winter 2020
Winter 2020.
issue. Um, because it,
Tiger, tiger.
yeah. Why don't you tell us
Tiger
about
Tiger by Teal James Glenn.
it? Yeah.
Uh, the
Hmm?
the premise is that a British secret agent has been sent to Weimar, Berlin, because there are reports of a vril sorcerer who's been skulking into cabarets and performing. Uh, well, not to give away too much, but he's been performing illusions that may be more than just mere tricks, and British intelligence wants this guy to go check that out. Needless to say, bizarre happenings ensue.
As they should. And then you've got a Kickstarter for the fifth anniversary issue, which I am notified. I click that little notification thing there, and I am looking forward to immensely.
Yeah, it has been 5 years since we started this crazy thing. We've put out 15 issues, three specials. I've published a couple anthologies from Misha Burnett, Louise Sorensen, the Mongoose and Meerkat book, plus all of Michael Tierney's Wild Stars. And beginning in 2021, we are serializing Michael Tierney's latest Wild Stars novel. And for the first time ever, we are having illustrations.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's something that people have been bugging us about for a while. And I'm like, well, we can't really do illustrations because we can't afford illustrations. And truth be told, we still can't afford illustrations, but it's our fifth year, so why the heck not?
Right.
We are going to have interior illustrations from Dark Philly on this new upcoming issue. She is the person who did the illustrations for Volume 1 of Mongoose and Meerkat. If you guys check that out, if not, you really should.
I've got it in this giant pile of books I've been meaning to read. Uh, I've got like a whole bunch of Castalia houses. I've got Mongoose and Meerkat. I've got a couple
Mongoose
others.
and Meerkat quick read. You should be able to knock it out in an evening.
Actually, I should. It's pretty much the thinnest book in this stack. I mean, what am I doing? And it's like right on
Yeah, I mean,
top of The Howling Dark by Christopher Rocchio.
it's about 45,000 words.
Yeah.
That's pretty short.
Yeah, it collects the first 5 adventures that we serialized, plus a new novelette that it's in its own setting, but it fit tonally enough, and we hate to say needed to pad out the book, but we wanted to give something extra and new to people who'd already read the 5 stories before, besides just the illustrations. And the illustrations are fantastic, by the way. And like I said, that's why we got Dark Philly doing the interior illos for the upcoming issue this year for both the Mongoose and Meerkat story, and a couple for the Wild Stars novel. The main cover that we've got for this new issue is by Anton Oxenuk, who's been our regular cover guy since about 2018. He's done just phenomenal work for us over the years. I know that Frank Brunner is kind of the iconic Wild Stars cover artist, but I think Anton Oxenuk might be starting to edge him out a bit.
The
We've
Wild
also...
Star art has always been excellent.
Oh, thank you. I'm sure Michael would love to hear that, since it started out with him drawing it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But that's alright.
So we're also going to have a special variant cover by Genzo Man, which will also feature the first time that the Artemiques have appeared on the cover of a Wild Stars book, which is kind of funny considering that they're one of the main villain groups of the entire series in the last 35 years. This is going to be the first time they're going to be on a cover.
Sounds like a great time. Is there any other things you're putting out with Cirsova?
Well, right now, we just also put out Misha Burnett's Endless Summer, which is a collection of his weird science fiction, strange tales of mankind's future. If you like weird fiction and sort of new wave, but you like it to be a little bit less grimdark and a little bit more uplifting, Misha Burnett is probably one of the best guys in the field doing that sort of stuff right now, and we're thrilled to be able to publish some of his stuff. We haven't had any of his shorts in the magazine for a while, so we're kind of making up for it by putting out some anthologies by him.
Absolutely. I know he's been in our circles for quite some time, even if we don't interact with him for too much.
Yeah. So we did some pre-orders for that earlier last year in the fall. Got that out. It's out in general release now if anybody wants to pick that up. It's
You
easy
got a
to
link for
find.
us?
Just I do not have a link that I can easily drop at the moment, but I can get you one in a minute.
Oh, that's fine. I'll look it up. What's the name of it again?
Misha Burnett's Endless Summer.
Excellent.
So anyway, the plan is to flip the switch on the Kickstarter sometime next week, blog that for a few weeks, and test out a new fulfillment service that a friend of ours, RJ Carter, who runs Critical Blast, is launching. His original intention was so that people who were putting out comics and stuff overseas could send boxes to him and he could distribute it to people in America, but I was like, you know what? Let me get on that. I'll be one of your first clients. We'll try distributing stuff in America, mostly because I hate stuffing boxes. I've stuffed boxes for 2 Wild Stars campaigns. I stuffed boxes for the Mongoose and Meerkat campaign. There were a ton of boxes for all of those. And I'm thinking, if for $2 a unit I can have somebody else stuff the boxes for me, it just might be worth it.
I mean, I'll take that work. I don't care. I'll stuff boxes all day if I'm paid for it. It would also mean I wouldn't have to go back to the gas station. At least before I take a trip to see Ken Dickinson and a few other different people.
Yeah.
Which I am.
And so part of the reason
Mm-hmm.
why we've been waiting just a few days here to get the Kickstarter live for the 5th anniversary issue is we are taking advantage of Michael Tierney's existing mail order business. So we have flyers for the new Cirsova 5th anniversary issue being sent out to his many hundreds of reserve customers. Because even though he closed his brick and mortar stores, he kept his mail order business online and switched his pull box customers to mail orders. So hopefully some of those many customers who will be receiving comics in the mail sometime next week will open it and see a flyer for the new issue and be excited enough to check us out online. And by then we can turn things on and people can back the project. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason we wanted people to get these in their hands is because we've got some really big items that we're going to be putting at the top tiers. People will have an opportunity to back for the original Dark Philly interior artwork. They will also have the opportunity to back for the crappy chin painting that I did for our 5th anniversary variant C cover. I got permission from Team Shanghai Alice to include a Toho character on the cover of our 5th anniversary issue. It will only be available through this Kickstarter.
Your reach is both amazing and terrifying. Admittedly, I just bribed friends in Hollywood to do a detective photo shoot with like $50, and he made
Yeah,
work
that's
out of it.
cool.
It's like, but this is the real deal. So,
Yeah,
Yes.
so
so yeah. So with actually, I'm kind of interested with this mail order thing. So this guy had a comic shop, I guess.
yeah, he owned two of the oldest independently owned comic shops in the country, but the COVID stuff and uh, the comic industry literally just shutting down because the coastal stores said we don't want you to send anybody anything. Just kind of killed things for him here.
Yeah,
He
that
he
sounds.
owned one of his he owned one of his properties outright, and somebody put an offer on it, and the lease was coming up on his other store, and things just kind of came together for him, and so he found someone to buy most of his outstanding stock, bought the property in one city, let the lease expire in the other, and now he's just doing mail order only from his house.
Huh. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I always like hearing about various characters, within our circles, sort of finding new things. And honestly, with how things are going, that's he probably made the smartest possible play he could, uh, considering.
Well, and he's also wanting to focus more on his writing too, because he's not only is he working on this Wild Stars project for us, I don't know if you've seen anything about that massive 4-volume art chronology of every scrap of artwork associated with Edgar Rice Burroughs ever published that he put out. But he's doing something similar now for Robert E. Howard, and so he's
Ooh.
been tracking down every copy of everything from the big name, easy to find stuff to weird zines that barely exist. And
Right.
so he's trying to get his hands on every scrap of everything Robert E. Howard for this new project he's working on.
I can imagine. Like I've done research like that myself. Going in and finding strange newspapers and on microfilm. Like that no one's bothered to look at in I don't know. 10 decades, a century or more. It's honestly amazing.
Yeah, it's funny too because after his Edgar Rice Burroughs art chronology book, he's the guy that the estate goes to when they're trying to find art. Like, hey, does anybody have a decent copy of this picture? Hey, let's ask Michael. See if he'll give us a copy.
Right. That's outstanding.
Yeah.
I didn't think much was happening with Edgar Rice Burroughs though. Besides the giant thing he put out, is it an omnibus?
Well, there are several ongoing Burroughs projects. They've got on the website, there are dozens of ongoing comic strips. In fact, Michael has been writing and coloring a sort of Sunday strip adaptation of Beyond the Farthest Star for the last few years.
Huh. Wow. I don't recognize Beyond the Farthest Star though. Is that a?
It's one of his. I think it's one of Burroughs' last major books.
Huh. You know,
Let me see if I.
I've never heard of that one before.
I'm wondering if the movie adaptation, or this movie that it's coming up for, is an adaptation of it.
I think Tarzan. The Tarzan movie was just bad, but I think the Princess of Mars movie was still robbed.
Beyond the Farthest Star consists of two novellas, Adventure on Pelota and Tangor Returns, written quickly in late 1940, published in Blue Book magazine in 1942. The second part did not see publication until 1964.
Huh.
So it was adapted in comics by Marv Wolfman in 1972. But it is one of the lesser known works. Apparently, the publication date for the paperback is 1964.
I can see that. So let's see here. It's a grind, great imagination. Toho posting? Toho posting. I tried playing the Toho games. I didn't really it didn't really like mesh with me like the bullet hell genre. It's just never done anything for me. Um, I wish it kind of did because I'd probably enjoy it more, get more references. Like that music though. Oh,
Well, you don't have to play Toho to enjoy Toho. It's got a broad enough spectrum of media at this point.
really?
But I do enjoy the games. I like the first 9. He did some changes to the second generation of Windows Toho games that I'm just like, these are too tough. I can't deal with it.
Right.
He made some more changes to the third generation, and I played one of those that I kind of like. 10 Desires, the one that has the Jiangxi girl.
John
But
She's are classy.
yeah, but I really like the early Windows ones. The first Windows ones, 6 through 8, I think, maybe 6 through 9.
Maybe this just gives me an excuse to talk about Monster Girls, and I'm okay
Maybe.
with that. I'm okay with that.
Did you really need one though?
I like to pretend I do. You know, for appearance's sake. You know, if you just kind of go in there and start talking about Monster Girls, people go like, "Yeah, but Ben, that's a centaur. That's weird." It's like it's not weird. I'd marry her first. Come on. Don't be a prude. Let's do it.
In
And
the
my
eyes of
girlfriend's like,
God, it will be quite legitimate.
my girlfriend's like, do you think it's weird that I have this giant thing of Monster High dolls here in the living room? It's like I have no problem with all of these Monster Girls here in the living room.
No, we're good. It's a cultural thing. Perfectly cultural. Actually, there's this great Robot Chicken sketch about the Crypt Keeper killing the Monster High girls. Just like in a serial killing thing because they took his
That's
job.
amazing.
It's pretty funny. So let's sort of narrow us down to Cirsova Magazine. Anthony, why don't you talk a little more about Tiger?
Yeah, so the story with Tiger with and Cirsova generally. So I have read Cirsova in the past. It was like probably years ago the last issue I read, and I knew we were inviting you on. So I said I'm gonna pick up an issue and just get caught up with it. Start start off one again. So I picked up the Winter 2020 issue, read the first story, Tiger, and I was probably like a third of the way in or so, and I messaged Ben as I was reading it and said, "Dude, this is really fucking good." Uh, and Ben is like, "Really?" It's like I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
And then I got to the end of the story, and I'm like, "All right, so that was actually fantastic. I want to invite this guy onto Pinkerton's Ghosts." Uh, Tiger is a superb story. I must admit, at the very least, it's right up my alley. Um, just really, I don't know. I'm trying to think of how to put it. It's really just solid. Like there's nothing that I would say is nothing about the premise or what happens in it is like this has blown my mind because I've never seen anything like it before. But everything it executes is rock solid, just really well done.
It even has a Lady Godiva scene down the streets of Weimar, Berlin.
It does, yes. It's got Lady Godiva down the streets of Berlin. Uh, it did strike me as the sort Glenn did strike me as the sort of author who would work well with the Pinkerton's Ghosts, especially a period piece for the Pinkerton's Ghosts, because it was structured very similarly, where the main character is going on a mission to investigate something supernatural. He gets in a conflict that is resolved by the end of the story, and it finishes up with him reporting what happened to his superiors, and presumably setting up for a potential next time. Though I don't know if Glenn was ever intending to go back to that world or not. But
Well,
point is,
they are publishing a side story next issue, not the spring issue, but I think the summer issue, either the summer or the fall issue. We've got a story of his that the main character is Dr. Argent, who is mentioned in
oh
the
really?
beginning of
Yeah,
Tiger.
interesting, very
So we have
interesting.
Dr. Argent, Vampire Hunter, coming up
That's a
in a
great
couple
name
issues.
for a vampire hunter.
That is. I am very interested in reading that, so I'll make sure to pick it up. So I I hope that Mr. Glenn accepts our offer that we're definitely going to make to him to write for Pinkerton's Ghosts. Hopefully, the honor and glory of being associated with such a prestigious and high quality YouTube radio show is enough to sway him in in the absence of monetary compensation.
Someday.
Ooh.
Actually, like it's one of those things where it's like we're still really early on, so it's like we haven't
It
built
is,
up
yeah.
a fan base or anything like that. But it's like we appreciate all the fans we have so far. But like I'm gonna up my ante for like the Patreon and stuff like that. Try to
So
get a little something something so I could pay
my
Kid Dickinson
understanding,
and
my
authors.
understanding of the of our viewership and monetary situation and all of that comes from Ben, who actually runs all the channels. And my understanding is that we are growing, and the growth is slow but steady.
Yep.
That it's happening, it's real, and we are getting more and more viewers every time, but it's
One or two
slow.
here and there.
Yep.
I'll have to slot you
So
into my.
it's about
You guys are on YouTube with that, right?
Yeah, in this channel, in fact.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
yes,
So,
we are.
like, I was
We're on
actually,
YouTube and we're on unauthorized through Vox Day, and I have no idea how many viewers we have through Vox, but
I asked.
uh,
He hasn't told me, and I'm like, that's okay. This is probably a good thing we don't know.
I didn't think he would tell you honestly.
Yeah. But yeah, no,
But with
I'm
that,
happy to be on unauthorized though.
I'm definitely happy to be on unauthorized, especially
Yeah,
because
give it
we very well may get pulled from YouTube in not that long, considering how things are going. So that we're up on unauthorized is nice.
I was planning on when you guys open up Cirsova to submissions again to give you guys a Pinkerton's ghost story starring Jack Morrow because it is
Yeah.
we are brother pulp writers in this case. Hmm.
And even if we don't do open, send me a message sometime later in the summer, because one of the reasons why we didn't do open submissions for this year is because we just had so many things going on, taking up all the space, and
Mm-hmm.
we weren't even able to get a quarter of the authors from last year fit into the space we had available for this year. Partly
Wow.
because we just published so much last year. Like
Oh
we
yeah.
only published 5 issues, but it was something like 7 issues worth of content. And between serializing the new Wild Stars and getting the rights to Bad Axe, we just didn't have the space.
That's perfectly fine. You know, like I sometimes have to go over things with like Anthony and Ken and David about space just because it's like, hey, you know, only about 3K words an episode, 4K at most.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just a really
So
long episode.
Pinkerton's ghosts. In my own head, I look at 3,000 words as like the average, and then I try and shoot for somewhere between 2,500 on the short end to 4,000 on the long end. So the shortest that I've actually had for an episode was somewhere around 2,500, and I considered that acceptable because I'm normally over that amount. Like I'm normally fairly well over the 3,000 word limit. Uh, really, I think it's less word count and more that 3,000 words averages out to, depending on speaking speeds, somewhere around 22, 25 minutes,
Yep.
which is
Oh,
about
that
what we want for an episode.
that reminds me, we are in the process of getting together an audiobook edition of the first volume of Mongoose and Meerkat, and
Ooh.
I'm glad you said something because I have one of the chapters that I need to review at some point tonight.
Do you
Like,
have
no,
a
not that I'm rushing off or anything, but just like, oh yeah, I need to get back with our reader on that.
right? Oh, you already have a reader?
Yeah, yeah, we did some auditions, and oh my gosh, if you put in even I'm willing to pay a token per hour rate, you just get swamped with auditions compared to just the normal royalties.
Oh yeah.
Of course.
So we got, oh gosh, I can't even tell you how many
So
auditions. But we got a really good lady who's just amazing as Cat, particularly to do the readings for it.
fantastic. Like genuinely, that's pretty cool. Uh, I am a true believer in Pinkerton's ghosts too. I will say. I believe in the quality of our work. Though I did say to Ben after finishing Tiger, I'm also slightly annoyed because why is everybody a better writer than I am? Than I am? Uh, who do these sort who are in our circles? Like, you know, damn it, I gotta up my game. But I'm a believer in the quality of Pinkerton's Ghost, so I think that quality will out, and I think it is, and I think it is. It's just moving, it's moving slowly, but we knew that it's nothing unexpected. You know, I
We're in the Nile.
you'll have to
We're in
ask
the
Ben,
Nile.
who's the person. Yeah, right. You'll have to ask Ben, but I don't think this was anything that the speed we're moving at was really unexpected. I expected it to move about this slowly, and this slowly it is moving.
What?
It
One
is.
of
It's going It's going neither better or worse than I thought it would go. It is going almost exactly as good as I expected it, as well, I should say, as I expected it to go.
I've always been well, not envious. Envious isn't the right word, but admiring of Cirsova for its consistent output,
Well,
as well as
Cirsova does it smart, I think, because I've of course we've worked for Jason Rennie and been published by him, and Jason Rennie has also had publications that have come and gone. And I noticed Cirsova does it differently. They don't do as much. They don't publish as often as Jason tried to. Instead, they campaign and fundraise for their publications for literally months in advance, and then they put it out on like what, a quarterly schedule or something like that, or even a little bit less.
Well, we average out to about 4 issues a year.
So
We've
there you
done
go.
we've done a few Kickstarters. This is the first time we've done a Kickstarter for something that wasn't a one-off publication in a while. Part of it is because I'm not good at crowdfunding. I hate doing them, and I'm not particularly good at it. But I'm at least able to consistently put out a quality product that is delivered on time. So
Right.
there is a
So I think that that's kind of a difference. So Jason, when he did his publications, and to be clear here, I have absolutely nothing but good things to say about Jason. So don't take this as me like criticizing him compared to you, but you ran things differently. So Jason's burnt had more issues, but burned out quicker, whereas you seem to be able to keep up with it because you're not doing it as often, and you're taking the time to
yeah.
raise money and make sure you
Well,
have the resources you need per issue, which is smart. I think that's a good idea.
Well, one thing that I've done is I only accept stories one time during the year, and so like I'll spend a month or two going through a slush pile. Because if I tried to do that on an ongoing basis, I would just be miserable. I'd be overwhelmed by it. Even this last time, just because of how much other stuff I had going on, it was a little bit tough to
Mm.
do. But I'd at least paced out my solicits.
To be honest, there's really no need to do it any more often than that. So I've run slush piles before, and I've been a part of slush piles before. There was a period of time I worked for a month with they called themselves a literary journal, but they were, a fiction, fantasy, sci-fi type, publication called Spark, where I was a slush pile reader for them for like a month, and then I realized that I was too busy for it, and I just kind of said, yeah, I don't have the time for this, and it's not paying me a lot of many dividends. So even though it was interesting in a sense, I dropped out of that. And one thing you realize is that there are a lot of people who want to be writers. If you look at, the submission grinder, for example, which is an absolutely fantastic resource that every potential author should be using all the time. Uh, the submission grinder gives you some of the statistics on, if I'm recalling correctly, on your chances of getting published, and your chances of being published statistically are extraordinarily low. So, like, I feel like I want to say it's something like a less than 1% chance that any story that you submit to any magazine is actually going to get picked up. I mean, obviously, this doesn't account for variables at all. If you've already been published, how long you've been writing, quality of the story, where you're submitting to, blah, blah, blah. But just on a raw statistical basis, what are the odds of the story that I am submitting getting picked up? They are really, really low. And what that tells you is,
Uh,
and where I'm getting with this, there are tons of submissions. If you open up the submissions, you will get. You won't have to worry about getting enough entries.
yeah. That's one of the really tough things I think for writers right now is that there is a much greater supply of quality fiction than there is markets to publish it and
Hmm.
consumers to read it.
So I
So
did.
the actual monetary value of quality writing is relatively low.
There's a flip side though to this, because I did mention this to Ben last week, I think actually. But I have mentioned this to Ben in the past, and I think that there has been a change due to the fact that publishing is now no longer through like the big publishers and the big houses. Where if you had asked me like let's say 5 years ago, or maybe a little bit more than that, before I joined this scene, whether it was realistic to try and make a career as an author, I would have told you absolutely not. It's insane. Don't do it. You will not make, the odds of you making a career as an author are sort of like winning the lottery. You have to have so many things break right. Now, however, I would not say that. Because of the way writing fiction has opened up, I actually do believe that it is possible for anybody who puts the work in to make a career as an author. You just need to treat it like it is 100% your career, dedicate yourself to the craft, and consistently put out works on a timely basis without disappointing your readers. And you can do it. It's doable. But as a hobbyist, like you mentioned, like there's the issue where if you're trying to do it as a hobbyist, you shouldn't do it to make. You can be a hobbyist. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, people are hobbyists for all sorts of reasons, but you're not. Don't expect to like be making any real money out of it. Do it for
Well,
fun.
and
If
it's
that's
also
the case.
very, the novel market is very different from the short fiction market
Yeah.
because because I mean, in theory, you should be able to make plenty of money with short fiction because you sell the story once, you can possibly sell it as a reprint, and you can also sell it as a collection. But the thing is there's so much short fiction out there. There's
Yeah. You can't do
there's
that
there's
basically.
no value to it because a publication could say we're going to pay nothing. We're not going to pay anything. We'll give you a free copy of the magazine. They'll
Duh.
still get submissions because people want to get published.
Yes, at one point in time, I would have submitted to such a place. I no longer do because I think that that's a scam. Don't get me. I don't think like I think you have to offer if you're going to open up uh, submissions like and have an open submission process. Then you have to offer at least a nominal payment. And when I say a nominal
Yeah,
payment, I literally mean $5. I don't
yeah.
really have a
Well,
problem. But if you're just saying you get a copy of the magazine, then you're being gypped. Don't do it.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's when R.J. Carter was putting together his Gods and Services anthology. He was like, well, how about giving them a couple copies? And I'm like, tell you what, you'll probably get better submissions if instead of giving them a couple copies, you just give them however much money it would cost to send them a couple copies at cost. And so he ended up paying some like $25 on for token rates, which really isn't bad considering how low the monetary
25 is
demand
awful.
are.
No,
No, no.
like I've seen as low as $5 before, and to be clear, I actually don't. I see even there are people who have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that as long as you're upfront about it. As long as you say in advance, like, this is a token rate. We know that it's a token rate. You don't need to submit here. Basically, it's like, but we just don't have the money to offer more. However, I think that you should be paid. Like that makes a quantitative difference in terms of and I say this right after going, we're going to invite someone without paying them, but it's a
No,
little
no,
bit
no, no, no.
different.
What I've just
It's a
heard
little bit
is
different because we have open submissions.
I can get
We
away
don't
with
have
paying somebody $5. That's what I've heard.
because what I'm. It's also different because we don't have open submissions.
Yeah.
We're inviting
And,
people, but if you have
and
open submissions, you have to offer something.
yeah.
Literally any,
Well,
because even then it makes a difference to put it on a resume. You could say, like I submitted to a paying market. Sure, it was
well,
$5, but it was a paying market.
that's one of the things that I try to make people understand is that it's for us it's not just about space, it's about budget. We can't publish everything we like because we actually pay authors a pretty reasonable amount on acceptance. So the average story for us, we're paying almost $100 because our rates are 1.25 cents per
Mhm.
word. So that
So
actually puts our per issue cost at around $2,000 almost.
yeah,
Wow.
like the most I've that is a lot, but the
Well,
most I've ever
the,
been paid for. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say that the one chunk of the cost is the per word, uh, with an average of about 50,000 words per issue. We have covers, which at this point we're paying about $500-600 for. We do pay our editors. We've been paying them about $50 an issue now, or the equivalent of about $10 per 10,000 words that they're editing. And we also send out copies to our contributors. So, like I said, all told, by the end of the day, an issue of Cirsova costs between $1,600 and $2,000 to put out.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
impressive that you can do that. But the most I've ever been paid for a single short story was $250 for the second short story I ever published. It was in Jason Rennie's sci-fi journal from years ago.
Oh yeah.
Now we're talking classic, baby. Uh, it's in the realm of classic. But so it was a short story called "Take Up Your Cross." It was about 6,000 words, and Jason basically told me like, so I forget how much he was offering per word at the time, but I went over the word count and submitted it anyway, and he basically told me like, so I can't give you what you would get for the word count, so I'll throw $250 your way. Is that okay? And I emailed him back, which, by the way, I actually regret doing this now, and I wouldn't again. But at the time, I emailed him back, if you offered me potato chips, I would accept, or something along those lines. Like, I forget the exact words, but it was something along the lines of, like, you could offer me peanuts right now, and I would say yes. $250 at the time was roughly my paycheck over a 2-week period. So, yeah, I was working part time, but it was roughly my paycheck over a 2-week period. So $250 was an enormous amount of money. Uh, so I was thrilled with that. And Sci-Fi Journal technically did not pay what the SFWA would consider industry standard rates. Now, we here at Superversive Sci-Fi have the, I don't think official, but more or less official position that SFWA is a scam organization that you should avoid.
Yes.
So I don't much care that that he was below what the SFWA considered industry standard rates, because the SFWA does not, and I did not want to represent me anyway. Uh, in retrospect, I would not have made a comment like that, because, as was pointed out to me later, that actually makes both the magazine and you look worse. If you say, I can't just give, because I can't just give people, let people in without paying them. Because if I do that, then it makes it look like, well, the reason that you let them in is because they, because they didn't want to be paid, and you're just going for the cheap option. And as was pointed out to me later, like, if you really want to do something nice for the magazine, then donate the money back to us, and we'll take it. But don't say, don't pay me.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a difference, which is fair enough. But at the time, I was new enough, and that was really my first published story. I submitted it at the same time as another story, and they were both accepted at the same time. And that was how I got wrapped up in the world of the Superversives, by the way. Uh, and thus began the road that led to here.
Someday I'll be able to pay him more than potato chips.
Yeah, well,
I mean, don't hold your breath, but
the $250 was at the time an enormous amount of money to me, and if I got it now, it would be an enormous amount of money to me. So the more things change, I am earning fairly significantly more money than I was at the time that I submitted that story, but I'm not earning that much. So I'd still take $250 in hand if offered, without complaining, for a short story.
you hear that, Cirsova? You can just throw peanuts at him, and he'll thank you for it.
There you go. Just give me a 5.
A firm
Yeah.
handshake.
We've paid $5 for a story before, I think. It was flash
Was it,
fiction.
I was about to say, was it a flash fiction piece?
I think it was that James Lamb story from last year. In fact, we have another one by him this year that's another really good flash fiction. I really need to see some more from this kid, but I think he's got some promise for being just really. He's really good at flash weird fiction.
So I know among our group of writers, I have had discussions about this before, and what I have said is that we have advantages and disadvantages compared to what the traditional publishing looks at. The advantages that we tend to have, as a rule, are that we are willing to dabble in genres, ideas, and concepts that traditional publishing won't touch, and as a result, we have a lot more variety and a lot more I'm trying freshness to our work. The downside of writers in our community, again, this is generalized, is that we tend not to be at the level of polish that you see from traditional writers. As much as I hate to say, it, and I don't think you're quote unquote supposed to admit it, most of, not all, but most of the time, you can just tell when somebody is, reading them, that they are a professional published author with a, real quote unquote
Job.
publishing house.
A
Yeah,
lot of
kind of.
I'm gonna
With a
say that
real
a lot of
publishing
that is
house, there
kind
is a
of
polish. A
the
lot of that is the editor, yes.
because we've actually had some authors that are professional published authors, and I mean their stuff has been really good, but it still needed a little bit of polish to it before it went out. I mean one of our authors from last year, not saying that their stuff isn't not saying their stuff isn't good. I'm just saying that everybody needs a little polish. Some folks need more polish than others, but everybody needs polish. We have never received a single story that was just A plus good to go without significant work. Even our best stuff.
Really, that's interesting because I've edited 2 anthologies and I absolutely have had those sorts of stories before. So I find it very interesting that you say that.
I mean, they're all like I said. Even stuff we've gotten from professional authors have typos, just some weird grammar stuff that needs fixing. There's nothing.
Oh, well, that's a little bit different. Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
that's
thinking
what I'm
of
talking
like,
about. We've never gotten a single
okay,
story that we could just say, "All right, dump the text and ship it." We've received
yeah,
and published stories by Hugo Award-winning authors who sent us just amazing fiction that still had some edits that had to be done because everybody needs their crap edited. We have never gotten something that did not need to be edited.
Anthony, just because
so
like
I have,
we go over quite a bit with our Pinkerton's ghost stories, doesn't mean that there's anything special or particularly bad about yours. It just means that we have a very specific image more than great pulp literature, or however you mentally view it, Cirsova.
yeah, I'm aware of this, I'm aware of this, I just mean the anthologies I've gotten, I have gotten, several stories where I've read them and I've basically said, so dude, this is pretty much good to go. you know, like I gotta make, with that said, I will say that if you're talking about things like typos, no, I have never gotten a story that I've never had to do literally anything at all. Every single story, including the story I published by John C. Wright, at least had typos at points.
Thank
Yeah,
goodness.
that I had to go through. Right?
Yeah. The amount of stuff that we've gotten that has required any level of developmental editing has been next to nil. There have been a few stories that we've requested some minor rewrites or some expansions, but as far as developmental editing goes, as an anthology magazine, I really don't have time for that. Either you send me something that I like, or somebody else has something waiting to go. Like I said, there
Yeah.
have been a few times when I've said, "Fix this thing for me" and send it back, and and I've gotten it back and gotten some pretty good stuff.
So one of my favorite stories ever. So had like a word. We had a in my anthology, Tales of the Once and Future King. I had what I thought was a very generous word count because I didn't want to leave out stories just based on word count, right? If I could help it, I wanted to get as much quality as I could. So I said I'll go as low as 500 words and as high as 10,000 words. Very robust, right?
But
Turns
what
and
about
of
my
course,
12,000 word story?
yeah, and of course, one of the submissions we got was like a 20,000 or like 30,000 or something word story. You know, basically a novella. And I was all set to like, I was literally just gonna reject it without reading it, because it was just too long. And then I started to read it. I got sucked in, and it was me and my sister was like the co-editor with me, and we sort of, and I like showed it to her, and we both read it, and we were sort of like, "Damn it, this is really good! Like, this is actually fantastic." It was Kings of the Corona, by the way, which is years before coronavirus. Spooky. Anyway,
Was that
look
Jaji's
at that.
story?
No,
No.
Justin Tarquin.
Oh, yeah. I
It
So,
happens to be one of our editors.
could...
is he actually?
Yeah.
Ha, that's funny. So Justin Tarquin, that was his first published story, I believe he said, which blew my mind. Like I still can't believe that's his first published story because that's better than like some of the stories by established authors that I've
Never
received.
submitted anything to us. Hey, Justin, if you're listening to this, feel free to submit something to us next time. Just
Take a
because
look
you
at it then.
copyrighted it for us doesn't mean you can't send stuff. We've published Tavier.
Yeah, take it once I put out once I republish Tales of the Once and Future Kings again. Anyway, so once I put that back out again with the fall of with the late lamented Superversive Press's fall, once I put out Tales of the Once and Future King again, uh, then you'll have to take a look at Justin's story because it really is superb, and it was almost like actually kind of disappointing because I thought we just had an easy like auto reject. I was gonna get bored quickly, and then the story for us to accept it, it would have had to really blow us away, and it did. Like it actually blew us away. So we did contact Justin, and Justin like significantly shortened the introduction and the beginning of it, and I think he greatly improved the story in shortening it, which by the way is all not every time, but almost always going to be the case. Trimming the fat is almost always going to result in improving your story.
Yep.
Pinkerton's Ghost is a little bit different in that regard because we already have a clear idea of what we're trying to do with the story, and sometimes we actually do need to fill it out with like details to make things clear or whatever. But if you're just submitting a story somewhere, like 9 times out of 10, if you shorten it and sometimes significantly, that will improve your story. Uh, of course, there was.
Also,
Go
it'll
ahead.
just improve the chances because, like I said, space and budget are always a consideration.
Yep.
Like,
And
since
Kings
we're...
of the Corona became like the centerpiece of the anthology too, by the way. So Justin Tarquin, I did not know he was an editor for Cirsova. That's pretty funny.
Yeah. I,
Go ahead, Ben.
I consider us fortunate because a lot of our overhead, like, once we get paid, my first consideration is to make sure that Ken gets quite a bit of kickback, and then to distribute it between
Yep.
the three of us, and then monthly to whatever guest we have on. Because on average, every month is gonna have 4 Fridays. That means that I could divide up any Patreon support between the four of us, and I could say, well, David Halquist, who's our main guest right now, who, by the way, is an excellent pulp detective writer. Like, I want to see an actual like detective noir story from him someday, and his oh my goodness, I cannot remember it. Point is, he's published with Chris Kennedy Publishing, and his mech series is actually like I've been helping him with it, like chatting with him and stuff, as you do. is actually going to be absolutely amazing and one of the best mech stories that's been put out so far, including Brian Niemeyer's excellent combat frame Exceed. Um, I would almost pay money to see Brian Niemeyer comment on David Halquist's upcoming mech series. Um, but it's like my thought process is that eventually, I don't have to pay extra for an audiobook, we'll say, but I still gotta stitch it together. And what I'm thinking is if you're looking for audiobooks, um, you know, would you be open for like say Pinkerton's Ghost audiobook to throw it out there, especially with all the work done for you?
Yeah, that's true.
Wait, what, me?
Yeah. If you're getting into audiobooks, unless you want to keep it,
Oh,
because I've been
I,
looking
I
for a
don't know
home.
that I don't know that it would be a great idea for either of us because just of how since ACX is the main channel for audiobooks and the the cut that you get is fairly slight.
Really?
I don't know why if you had it finished you would want to split it with me.
Well, advertising mostly. But okay. No, that makes sense. I didn't realize it was a slight cut. Um,
I think like if you put out an audiobook and it's $20, Amazon takes 12 of it.
oh, that's actually pretty gross. I thought
And
so. I actually thought that you
Yeah.
were doing with the whole like tierney setup.
yeah, so we'll probably be making like $4
Ugh.
a book.
Yeah.
Will be with the reader.
Oh, that's
If
fine.
we
Like,
charge for it, but
yeah,
I don't know how much we're going to charge for it yet. But it's
yeah. I'd be
nobody
interested.
makes money off this but Amazon. I'm thinking.
Oh yeah, no, no. I'm only doing it just so I can maximize the amount of money coming in. Cause like I've started to treat my writing as a business, and like you've been doing this for a while, other people do it for longer and stuff like that. And while I'm always looking for like shortcuts to make things easier or to maybe grow readership or something, as well as do the hard work of post. You've seen me post every day on Twitter and
Yeah,
stuff like that. You know, it's still like building something from scratch is hard. It's annoying. And even though we've been growing to have about 30 consistent viewers by about week 2 or 3, though it's been down for the holidays, and I think that's because there's a much more interesting things happening in the world, so to say, that we'll
yeah,
leave it at that. That it's not as high as it could be, but
yeah.
it's it's interesting to try and build something from the ground up. We're already on it. We're approach. Well, like I need to voice episode 20, which will be the Puppeteer Returns, Jack Morrow's story with one of his. Like I'm not doing like villains that come up every week or anything like that, but I'm starting to build for every character their own little what's the term? Like Spider-Man has a league of villains, where like a villain roster. Um,
The Rogues Gallery.
Yes, that's
Thank
it.
you.
Rogues
That's the
Gallery.
word I wanted. Of like interesting uh, monsters. It's a monster mash uh, that'll bring out the best or the worst in my characters, um, as well as like kind of just uh, create a universe that is kind of shared. Um, Once hopefully in the future, I'll, we'll high five each other and we'll, work out something in the summer like you described or beyond. Um, and really get something going because the more I figure everyone works together, the better off everyone is. I've seen a lot of internet drama recently, and a lot of it's like, oh well, you're supporting this person, or you are a women author respecter, or something stupid like that. And it's like, guys, they're dividing and conquering us. Guys, please, we need to work together on this stuff, because I don't,
Hmm.
you know, with all this stuff, with all these politics and stuff like that. I don't care as much as I care about making sure that the episode of Pinkerton's Ghost that I'm working on right here, right now, is the best it can be. And I'm sure that you're the same way with the 5th anniversary edition and the next one and the next one. You know, it's that quality work that'll give us names that are worthy of being respected. And also, I'm always eager for another Skylar Hernstrom story.
Yes, I wish I could say that we had another Skylar Hernstrom story coming up next year, but Sky has been pretty busy in his personal life. I think he does have a story out in the Pylum Press
It's a
magazine.
collection of short stories, I think.
Yeah.
Or
Well, he's got the collection out through DMR Books, but he also had something new out from Pylum Press
ooh.
a few months back.
You know what I want? I want Josh Young to stop making excuses and get his damn book published.
Do androids? No, it's do
Yeah,
Buddhas.
it's Do Buddha's Dream of Enlightened Sheep.
I will be right back, guys. I have to take care of something.
That's fine. So I'll mention. I bring up if we're talking about up and coming writers. Josh Young was somebody who I spotted a few years ago when I did God Robot. So like,
Yeah, I think we have one of his in the fall issue.
There you go. So
Here.
Josh is one of those writers. I invited him to do God Robot, and which was an anthology of stories if you don't know it. But he did a story for that, and it was unironically in a book with John C. Wright in it. It was my favorite story in the anthology called Felix Culpa. And
Yeah,
Josh Young,
good stuff. We've only had a chance to publish one of them, but the stuff I've seen from has been really good.
Josh is an incredibly talented writer. He is He has a very clear voice. Philosophically, he knows what he's talking. He knows what he's talking about. You could tell it's a Josh Young story reading it, that sort of thing. And I knew he had been contracted by Castalia House to write a book, and then the bastard went and got married and had a child. And he never ended up publishing the book. Really, really disappointing to me, anyway.
Did he never end up publishing it, or did Vox never end up publishing it? Because those are
I
two
don't think he ended up. He didn't end up finishing it because I've spoken to Josh since then. He pops up in the Discord chat here.
Yeah, I see him around.
So if you see him, go and yell at him about it. If you see him around, make sure you look. Josh was always my pick for like up and coming author that I really wanted to watch out for, and unfortunately the dude just does not write enough.
It happens.
Comes up with your excuse.
That's what everybody told about.
Comes up with.
I don't have time to write anything because I'm too busy editing the magazine. If I ever stop editing Cirsova Magazine, I'll finally get to finish writing again. I've got one unfinished Mars story, and I've still got like one more story in the Neptune series that I was gonna write, but
we got two comments that are questions. Has Pylum published more than just the one book?
so far as I know, that's all.
I have no idea.
I haven't followed that super closely.
I am
Yeah,
back.
I don't know. And JD Cohen asked, "Hello, is Cirsova Volume 3 on the horizon after 2021?"
Basically, what I'm going to be doing is I've bought all the serial rights to Mongoose and Meerkat. There are 18 stories. We're going to serialize 16 of them. The last 2 of them are going to be collected in the last volume so as not to spoil the ending for anybody. As soon as we've burned through all of the serialized Mongoose and Meerkat adventures, Cirsova's probably going to an annual anthology, at which point it will be volume 3. So you've got until probably 2022, 2023 before that happens.
There you go. All right. That's a fair answer. So yeah, that's on the authors to watch out for. Unless we got Skylar Hernstrom, and Josh Young, both of whom have slowed their output due to personal life getting in the way. Uh, other people who you have to watch out for, of course, are Ben and I. Uh, Ben, you are currently working on a cyberpunk story, correct?
Uh, space fantasy.
Space fantasy.
Yep.
So the cyberpunk one, the one that you said you pretty much wrote for, wrote for the future, or you were writing like for the future.
I haven't. So, I don't quite know which one's the cyberpunk story because I haven't written cyberpunk in a while.
Then I might be then I'm either thinking of the wrong thing or you forgot. I want to say, was Jasper Silver? Was that it?
Oh yeah, no, I haven't worked on that in a very long time. I do have the first one written. I just haven't. I'm not going to do anything with it for now. No, so the stories I'm working on. You're absolutely right. So the stories I'm working on is Pinkerton's Ghosts. So big news for that. I'm actually writing a special story with Jack Morrow versus the Wild Hunt, where he is hunted by the Wild Hunt and is going to give them quite the show. Spoiler warning for the end. I'm planning on having a police officer stop him and ask him why there's a unicorn smashed into his bumper. Like a grizzly thing. You laugh, but I'm going to put Sean Russo and Jim Donovan in that car for a bit. Then
I was hoping. Are you kidding?
Right. I'm going to put out the Time Stop King. Then I'm going to put out a serialized set of novels called Beverly Hills Nephilim, which is going to be a Protestant monster hunter with more wrestling.
I dig it. And so as far as I go, I had been dormant in my slumber, more so even than the Josh Young who I criticize in terms of my writing, until Ben roused me from my Odin sleep.
I sung 7 songs, each more beautiful than the last. And then I slapped him, because I don't kiss corpses.
Of course.
I mean, not corpses.
Obviously. Yeah, obviously. This goes without saying. So, actually, Ben was very nice about it. He asked me, hey, I'm interested if you want to do it. And then I told him, I don't know, hemmed and hawed. And he's just like, the offer's on the table, but you got to tell me now. And I thought, so I took like one day, and then I said, why am I saying no? So what if it doesn't, so what if I end up not having the time for it? And I told Ben flat out, I don't want to say I'll definitely have time for it because I'm starting a new job, but I've made enough time. I have been badly late only once, and I knew the week before that it was going to happen, that I was going to be late, because I looked at my schedule and then went, oh no. And I messaged Ben and I said, we got problems. And even then, even with all of that, the story ended up being on time. And
it's because I bullied him.
Either. That's true. But it was on time.
Yep. How much bullying do you do in a day, Cirsova?
As my penance, the next story was early.
Yes.
So, I will say that.
I appreciate everything I get.
I made sure that the next story came out early. And right now, for once, in an unprecedented move for Pinkerton's Ghosts, we are actually slightly ahead. We're not significantly ahead. We're not running away with the timeline or anything. anything. We can't. You can't just go like, all right, guys, you can sit back and relax now. We're good. Call you when you need you. But we are at a point where if one of us drops dead, we probably have time to find a guest writer to fill in. And that's always
Oh, come on, Anthony.
that's the
I'd commit
emergency point
necromancy
you're
for
looking
you.
for. See, that's just about the nicest thing anyone's ever said. It's a romance to the end.
And now we're back on Greek myth, which is the 2021 JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Yeah, right?
So,
No, but seriously. Yeah, go ahead.
with Cirsova, with the stuff, how do, I've always kind of wondered about, since you say you get all your stories ahead of time, does that make it easier for you to put together these anthology magazines?
Yeah, because that sort of allows me to build around the themes that I get. So even though a lot of times we don't solicit based on a theme, based on the stories that I get, I'm able to build sort of theme issues like the issue that you just finished reading or started reading, the winter issue. It doesn't have a single theme, but it's sort of, uh World War II Nazi occult stuff that sort of melds into ancient Egyptian sorcery stuff. So, you kind of have a little bit of a thematic tie there. It's sort of like putting together a mixtape. You don't necessarily have it all the same thing, but you find stuff that flows together.
There
And
was,
one of the challenges this year, like I said, is that because we're serializing both a novel and a comic, that takes up almost all of the real estate in the first 3 issues of this year. So like the fifth anniversary issue is only going to have like 5, maybe 6 things in it. We've got the Artemic Paradigm Part 1. We've got the first issue of Bad Axe. We have the 8th Mongoose and Meerkat story. We have the 9th installment of James Hutchings' My Name is John Carter poem. We have a novelette length adventure of Darien and Blue from Robert Zoltan. And we have a short, sort of humorous deal with the devil poker player story from Michael Weisenberg. So, so even though it's the same length as a normal issue, there's not as much theme you can do when you only got 5 or 6 pieces that you're running.
yeah. I mean, like concerning themes. The only thing I really focus on is, is this episode a horror episode, and does it fit in? Like, if no one can point to it and say, start screaming at it, like it's some what's that one movie with the people that would point and screech?
Body Snatchers.
Body Snatcher. Like as long as people don't react like it's the invasion of the Body Snatchers, we're fine. It's all good. Uh, so, so you put together the theme uh, with sort of what's at hand, which
Yeah.
honestly has worked. I remember the sort of like the sword and sorcery themes of the earlier ones, or the more modern ones for the later ones. Was that?
The pirate issue 3.
Oh yeah, the pirate issue. That's what it was. I could remember. So your cover game is so good. I could remember the exact cover that I was trying to refer to, with like the guy on the deck of the pirate ship casting a spell.
Which ironically enough is Jim Brayfogle. That was his first appearance in Cirsova, and every one of his stories that we've run since that one has been a mongoose and meerkat story.
Honestly, those stories right there have been that one with the pirate ship and stuff like that was actually really good. Kind of almost better than it should be. Like it was just really good.
Well, We pride ourselves on the quality of our stories.
Mm-hmm. Whew. Sorry about that. I was exercising just before I got in here. Oh my gosh, I backed out of the stream. Okay. Nope. We're good. It's still live. Alright, I wasn't incompetent. I didn't ruin everything. And that's all that matters. Alright, so we've got Mongoose and Meerkat. We've got the audiobook. Man, I'm kind of depressed about that Audible thing. If they take $12 of it, but it makes sense, I guess, because of servers and distribution. But whatever.
It makes sense, but I also don't trust Amazon, so yeah, there's that.
Come on, baby! I want an Amazon Audible sponsorship. Do you remember when that was everywhere?
Yes,
JonTron was putting out Audible. Click link audible.com/JonTron.
Well, I mean, the only other option you'd really have is putting them up on iTunes or burning them to CD and selling CDs with your audiobooks on them.
So, one time when I was in college, taking the bus, someone actually tried to sell me bootleg DVDs. I was like, no, I'm good. No.
Nah, brah.
No. Hey, man, you want a discount audiobook? Get away from me. All right.
So, Ben knows that what I want is the Pinkerton's Ghosts anime, but I don't want it done by no B-tier studio.
Yeah.
Nobody cares if Silverlink does the Pinkerton's Ghost anime. I want Studio Trigger, Studio Bones, Madhouse. Actually, Madhouse would be a good pick.
It would.
Speaking of animes, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but we actually have Collateral Damage Studios doing a cover and interior art for a Caroline Furlong story in our summer issue. The artist who is doing it is Uso Nekorin, and let me see if I can drop his in the channel here.
Please. That sounds absolutely amazing.
That does. Although I want the Pinkerton's Ghost anime. See, this has been a long-standing disagreement between Ben and I, because Ben insists that it has to be live action. And
Hosted by Bruce Campbell, by the way.
And ideally I would want Studio Trigger, though we don't have enough cute girls. Maybe the introduction of my character from the next story will help. Or from the next episode, I should say.
You say that now. You say that now.
Right?
I will make you do horrible things to this poor, sweet, innocent girl. Innocent character developing things.
Exactly. So, I would prefer Studio Trigger. However, I think Madhouse would also be a good pick. While we're just naming things that we want to happen in the future to Pinkerton's Ghosts. If the anime is done by Trigger, ideal. Madhouse, solid. I dig it. No B-list studios. Rather not have an anime than have a crappy anime. And I want all of our fan service to be tasteful. Obviously, it will be there. It's going to exist, but it will be very tastefully done.
I get you.
Jack's gonna be in a lot of beefcake poses.
Oh yeah, he's got that thin wolf look going on.
A lot of shirtless scenes.
Yep, scars. He
All
gets
three of our characters
smudged up with oil, and he just kind of rolls with it.
So I will say that even though I haven't really given a description of Sean physically. I have always imagined that Sean was in at least pretty good shape because he went through, like a year of a year of training with with old Tom. So Sean shirtless could definitely give you a little something for the ladies in the audience.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just the oh, there it is. I got your thing in chat. Let's take a look. See.
Yeah, they're illustrating Carolyn Furlong's story in the summer issue.
Nice. That is actually really good art. I'll put
Yeah.
it up in chat. I actually think I've got. So I keep a vast collection of art pieces as just reference material. So if I need character designs, like I've got like things set apart by hair color or style or something like that. Like what's in a traditional style, what's in the military style, that sort of thing. So it's like click, click, click. Okay, I like this part, take. I like this part, take. Oh my goodness. I'm just gonna mute my thing for a bit. I don't care if everyone's wanting my attention. And if it's an emergency. Like what's good looking glasses, cause dang. Some of this stuff looks good.
Wow, this is good. This is good art. I'm impressed.
Right?
Uh, Barring the Pinkerton's Ghost anime, I'll take the Pinkerton's Ghost comic book. At least it's tied me over
If
until the studio gets it together.
if we get enough support, like that is on the table as one of my first projects. Um
I figured it does fit for a comic book. The style of Pinkerton's Ghost for an
mhm.
anthology style comic.
And Vox Day is actually opening up Arkhaven quite a bit to quality work. Um According to his blog. I presume
So
yeah.
the only thing about making comics is that
It's
if you know anything about it, yeah, it's so expensive.
Oh yeah.
So I was going. I'm gonna go off on a tangent here because and I think it's a very relevant one though because I was talking with someone where they go like what happened to the comic industry, and the answer the traditional answer among people of our sorts is that it went woke, went broke, and the comics industry, by the way, is going to be one of the first of the legacy institutions to finally actually die out. That's going to happen within the year, probably. We're going to see the death of at least one of the two major comics companies, and I'm actually sad about it, even though that they're now skin suit, walking skin suits.
What a
But it is
horror
sad to see.
concept.
Yeah, right. But I actually am sad about it because it's going to mean like the collapse of the industry. But in the ashes lies opportunity and all of that stuff. But anyway, so here's the real reason though. They're right about that, but that's only like the tip of the iceberg. Here's the actual reason. So I have on my phone uh, the Shonen Jump app. So Shonen Jump, of course, being the biggest uh, magazine, comic magazine, manga magazine in Japan,
in the
and
world.
yeah, well, I'm not sure in the world actually, because European comics are really, really big, so I won't guarantee that.
Oh,
Like
yeah. Like
the
I've
European comic industry is actually larger than the Japanese comic industry. With that said, Shonen Jump might be the biggest in the world. I'm not sure. I won't guarantee it though. Not the point though. So the point is, I have on my phone the Shonen Jump app. I pay $3 a month for this app. When I realized that it was only $3 a month, I wasn't going to pay for it, but I'm like, that number? Yeah, I'll do $3. You know, that's, what, one less coffee? So, and it's a sacrifice I feel every day. No. So, the Shonen Jump app gives me every single comic that has ever been published, to my knowledge at least, by Shonen Jump. Hundreds of comics in full, from issue number 1 to the latest issue, for $3, and I can access it anytime, anywhere, the entire backlog. Now consider this. Say you wanted to buy a collection of all of the issues of Captain America from, all the way back to the beginning. Number one, how long would it take you to find such a thing, and how expensive would such a thing be? And once you wrap your head around that, you will understand the actual problem with the comics industry. Because here's the thing, this idea that comics, are really hard to recoup their costs and all of that stuff, that is actually not true. It is not only not true, you realize when you look at places like Europe and Japan, it is actually laughably not true. Because manga is not just making money, manga is printing money. Manga is making money hand over fist. It can't make money fast enough. It is making so much money, it's actually kind of disgusting. Uh, all of those anime that we all like and we're into, whatever, it is 100% the truth that anime is really just an advertisement for manga and light novels, which, by the way, is the Japanese equivalent of the Pulp Fiction scene. So, anime, that's literally what it is. Anime is an advertisement for manga because manga is what makes the money. And I can access all of this stuff. They are selling me this for $3 a month, and they are almost certainly making bank off of it. This is clearly making them, like, I would imagine that this is probably making them around millions of dollars. And I am
You there? Whoop.
they yeah, sorry.
Okay, good.
I'm here. I'm here. Sorry about that. This is probably making my microphone's a mess. Anyway, this is probably making them millions of dollars. Uh, so the idea that we're not making money in America with comics means that we must not only be doing something wrong, that somewhere along the way we have fundamentally messed up an industry that has the potential to be making everybody involved in it wildly rich. What happened?
Wildly rich, you say? I wish to be wildly rich.
Yeah, but
That's
isn't like
the
the life
real.
of a weekly manga artist just like an unending hell of nonstop work and being lashed by an editor?
Yes.
Right. There's the dark side of the industry. Yes. The dark side of the industry is that Shonen Jump is brutally meritocratic, which is both a good and a bad thing. The good of it is that the idea is that if you're not in the top 15 week after week, you get like 1 week of warning to get back in the magazine's good graces, and then you're dropped. And with no hard feelings, no, but that's it. There's no coming back. I mentioned the band in the manga Bakuman, which is about the making of manga. There's a really good example of this in that they have a hit manga in Detective Trap, and the artist gets sick. And when they come back after a hiatus, obviously they're not actually doing that well. They're like at, hovering around 15 to 18. When they come back, not because the quality of the comic has dropped, but because, they've been in a long hiatus, like a 3-month hiatus. And Shonen Jump gave them like, 2 weeks to, or something, or maybe a month to get back into the magazine's good graces. And when they didn't make it, then they were dropped, and that was it. Didn't matter that it was a hiatus, didn't matter that they were successful, didn't matter that they'd been a part of the magazine, for years working with an editor and had a contract with them. You don't produce, you are out. That is it. That's how Shonen Jump works. And this means that everything in there is certainly up to it has to be up to a standard because it's based on what the reader wants. However, there's a flip side to this. One of the flip sides is that the writers need to work themselves to the bone, to the point where they, not sometimes, but often, will make themselves physically ill. the Iraqis, Odas, and even to a lesser extent Horikoshi's, who's My Hero Academia, the of the world, they're the exception, not the rule. And even Horikoshi takes quite a lot of breaks. If you actually notice, he doesn't take long breaks, but he does take give me an extra week to get this out type breaks.
So does Oda. But he
Uh,
actually does have physical ailments.
yeah, which is not even remotely surprising. You have people like the creator, I think, uh, Hunter Hunter and Yu Yu Hakusho, I think. So Hunter Hunter, which has now been nicknamed Hiatus X Hiatus by fans
Actually,
because
pretty
of
funny.
how long it's been on. Yeah, because of how long it's been on hiatus. If you ask Togashi about like his experience in Shonen Jump, especially with Yu Yu Hakusho, I I think it was him who said it. It might have been the creator. No, I'm sorry. I'm conflating two different things. First off, Togashi made himself physically ill, very physically ill, and he is very bitter about Shonen Jump. And he calculated that he had like 4 free hours a week. After calculating the amount of time it takes him to make each chapter, that left him with 4 hours a week to do what he wanted. Which, wow. And the creator of Bleach, when they asked him about his experience with Shonen Jump, there's like an interview. I think Eyepatch Wolf mentioned this when they asked him about, are you, are you thankful for your time with Shonen Jump? And he answered honestly, no. Like, so to be clear, Shonen Jump probably made him wildly rich beyond his wildest imaginings with Bleach. One of the big three in Shonen, got a hit anime, still getting released now, getting its final arc released now, 20 years later and whatever. And if you ask the creator of Bleach about it, he says he does not care because he hates Shonen Jump that much. So
So I guess the
that's
question
the flip side.
is it is it worth it? I mean, it's an industry that chews people up and spits them out. The original point was it's really hard to make money with comics because they're expensive. But you can't really point to like the giant conglomerate monster that just eats up human resources and spits them out in the name of profit and making the fans happy is like
Kamikaze
the
artists
future. Yeah,
burning
is like
themselves
the
out.
future and way to go. I mean, yeah,
So
there
you're
is
correct
some
about
place
this,
for
but
that.
there has to be some sort of middle ground here, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
If we're
yeah, but
looking at the utter failure of the American industry versus the wild success of Japan, surely we can
wild
find a
success of
place
Shonen
in the
Jump.
middle. What was that?
The wild success of Shonen Jump, sure. I mean, not all of the magazines have that breakneck pace, and not all of them are as successful. But I mean, for people in
No,
our
but it's a
situation,
healthy industry.
yeah, I'm saying that for people in our situation and with our resources, it takes a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of money that a lot of people may not have for something which may not be successful if we're talking about trying to do independent comics. Like one of the things that some people have asked is whether or not Cirsova will be looking more into doing comic stuff. And the more I look at it, the more I'm like, Bad Axe may be a one-off thing because we were able to get Bad Axe for about what it costs to run fiction, but then we ended up having to do another $1,000 worth of digital cleanup on it because we didn't have the original artwork. Now we're offering something like a $7 a page rate, which is below even what a lot of like podunk webcomic platforms that do paid rates per page offer. So there's practically nobody who could come to us with a comic that we could make an offer on that it would be worth their while,
Hmm.
just like we would not be able to commission something from someone and make it worth their while just because of the cost to recoup. I mean, if you consider that illustrated start cost $4,500 for the 33 illustrations and covers we had, I mean that still hasn't quite recouped all of its loss. It's evergreen, yeah, but it's one of those cases where you have to be able to get a ton of investment money on the front end. You have to have a lot of buy-in. Not everybody's going to be able to get that. Not everybody's going to have the project management to make it come to fruition. You've seen that with a lot of the comics coming out of the crowdfund scene lately. Yeah, you get some that are pretty good, some that make a lot of money, some that don't make enough money to really be profitable, but make enough money to get one issue out, and then they just kind of flounder and struggle along. And we're still waiting on issue 2s and issue 3s on several of
Yep.
these. So
Right.
the perspective that I'm coming at is not, the big mega industry, what's going to replace the big two. I'm trying to look at it from what is possible and what is viable from people in my situation, people in your situations, the situations of our friends who say, "Oh, it would be great to do a comic." John
Oh, I
DeLoise is
agree with you.
one of the people
Yeah.
who's been able to really do it at the breakneck pace that's akin to what was going on during the black and white boom and indie boom of the 80s. He's had that level of output, and from what I understand, he's managed to be profitable at it. But there have been very few instances of people who've been able to do that who weren't already working with some sort of legacy property or had their name or were some big name industry person who's moved over to crowdfunding.
Yep. There's a lot of like jank out there. Like if we do a comic, it's literally going to be, okay, guys, we're earning, I don't know, $100 a month on our Patreon. I have paid you out, say, $300. Split 3 months worth of whatever between the three of us, and I know that they take like 5% or something, 10%. I don't know.
So,
At this point, I'm going to take that money, put it in the bank for advertising and maybe a comic.
Yeah.
And if you guys have an issue that you need to take care of, I will take care of you. But it's literally going to be either we pay ourselves or we pay for more advertising, more products. Give our guest authors a little bit of a stipend. Like it's like it like so our contemporaries do make like $12,000 a month or more in in their Patreons and support, and that doesn't count advertising revenue and other things like that. And it's enough to support entire businesses. Now, some of them are in England, and I know that you can get grants for just like anything in England, as long as it's artsy. And I'm not even exaggerating. And I'm sure they've got other things that they do, and they're like a whole company. But it's like, it's still, I believe I am the project manager. I am the legendary project manager. I have been given Excalibur by some lady in an office suit who's lying in ponds giving out Microsoft Excel programs, that I can handle it. I've handled Pinkerton's Ghost Weekly, and it's all been shoved through me and through Ken, and Ken has been doing amazing as well. And it's a lot of work, but it's like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do
so
more.
to be clear, I agree with you about everything both you and Cirsova have said. So I'm not trying to say like, you guys should do a comic, it'll clearly make money. What I am saying is, yeah, what I'm trying to say is that somehow something that we're doing, like, surely we're doing something wrong because comics are an incredibly profitable industry in at least three different major markets that I know of: Japan, Korea, and Europe. And there are probably more that I'm not aware of. But it's an absolute and total disaster in America. So, like, are you telling me that the only reason for this is because Japan kills its creators? I don't buy that.
Well,
Surely
see,
there's a middle ground here. Like,
you say
surely we're missing something.
See, here's the thing you're missing. You say that comics are a disaster here. That's because you're thinking of the big two. Dogman and Captain Underpants are selling millions of copies each. I mean, if you look if you include the weird Walmart stuff that's like bigger than God, you
Yeah,
have,
but even then, though, that's not the same thing, because then we're even talking about what, like, a dozen different titles versus, the dozens of titles that are popular throughout Japan, enough to be made into anime year after year after year. So
well, I
even then,
mean,
I would
here's
argue
the
that
thing,
we're
though.
smaller.
You know, if you look at like Captain Underpants and Dogman is America's Shonen Jump, and the big two, quote unquote, as all the mid and niche tier manga stuff, then you get a little bit better picture of the equivalence between the two comic industries.
I don't
The
think that is an equivalence, though, because Shonen Jump is a magazine that creates, makes, and breaks, dozens of different authors. Whereas Captain Underpants, if you talk about all of those books of the type you're referring to, and I know what you mean, Captain Underpants, Big Nate, uh, there was something else. I know what you
Rainbow.
mean. Those middle type books, those are by a single author, and they're essentially just marketed like the big two, or like the big five, now big four publishers, market their other books. It's not really the comics industry; it's a part of their publishing industry,
Yeah, I mean,
and it's
it's definitely a different model.
so. What I'm saying is the comics industry, as we think of it, like they have where they publish different lines and things like that. Certainly, a different type of model than Japan has. And I'm wondering how Europe does it too. I know nothing about Europe's industry. I only know it. The only comic I know from Europe is Valerian and Loreline off the top of my head, and Radiant, because that was made into an anime, but it's actually a European comic. Uh, and the anime wasn't very good, but I don't think anyway. But I know it was a European comic originally, and I happen to know that the European comics industry is mega huge, like larger than Japan. I don't know how they treat their writers, but I'm
So
just pointing out that there's money there.
so the
There's
Also
something
read
to
that
be done.
France is a larger consumer of manga than the U.S.
yeah. Germany
I can believe
also,
that.
like, so Germany, as always, for those sadistic perverts, has strange tastes. But if a manga hits the taste of Germany, it will sell absolute mountains. Like,
Well,
was that?
Potato Elf.
Yeah, like it is ridiculous. Like Blame by Sutomo Nihei, which is like his masterwork, even decades on, like still sells incredibly well in Germany, and even had a band which styled itself after it. It sells well enough, even to warrant it being reprinted in giant master volumes across the world, just on the strength of the German and American markets. So in France and England, though, it's different. So in England, they had the incredibly important 2000 AD magazine, Judge Dredd, Randall Randall Flag, uh, and a whole bunch of other ones that I can't remember now, but have incredible import to the comic book industry. Like, sure, we can make arguments about Batman and stuff like that, and you'd be right. But this unsung hero is 2000 AD. What's more, they also have a higher auteur culture than either Japan or America. Even though Japan does value its auteur comic creators, it's not the same thing. Like Mobius, there's a similar spirit in that they dedicate themselves to their art, but the feel of it is completely different. They are pretty much okay doing the same thing for the rest of their lives. And even though they do skip around different projects, guys like Mobius, you know, the amount of stuff they could do is, and that isn't to the norm, is outside of the American and Japanese experience. There are more things outside what we would call genre, or is just weird, or is just strange, or if, in my personal opinion, needs some more editing, or a firmer, climax. That it just kind of, I don't know, like it's like nothing we have. And it's to the point where it is, if you were to say, oh, the European comic industry is just like the American one, I'd say no, you're completely wrong. Completely wrong. It is a different species entirely. They were selling magazines on the streets of Paris when I went there as a kid, and next to pornography, but don't worry about that. They were selling art and comics and all these different things. And it was like, things I've never seen. You have Asterix and, like, they even do, like, Westerns, like, oh, what's the name of it? I think it's like Lucky Luke or something like that. And it's like it's hard for me to describe because I've read these comics. I've got relatives in England, and sometimes they send me comics like the Randall Flagg comic, which was an Englishman writing about a Reagan-ish, patriotic American, talking about that stuff. Like J.D. Cohen says, France is an industry to envy. Yeah. 2000 AD. You've got, let's see, Harlem Heroes, Judge Dredd, which is, of course, the famous one I've already mentioned. Strontium Dog, which is a fantastic name. Shakara, Necrofem, Necronauts, Age of the Wolf, Anderson Side Division, which has a knockoff of Judge Dredd. Like, it just goes on and on and on. And they've got names like Dan Abnett, Neil Gaiman, Alan Moore, Grant Morrison working for them, including, like, just about, like, just for the article I'm reading, basically every English comic creator either contributes or cuts their teeth on 2000 AD, except for, like, one guy who apparently just didn't like it and decided to make his own name. Let me see here. And I'm looking for Mobius comic creator. Let's see here. American Flag. That's the no, I'm pretty sure that guy was English.
Who's on the stairs?
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Mobius, Jean-Henri Gaston Garrod, I think. Let's see here. He did Silver Surfer comics. He's been shown in Paris alongside Hayao Miyazaki and in the International Manga Museum in Kyoto. And apparently he was friends with Miyazaki and named his own daughter Nausicaa.
Interesting.
I'm just sort of playing around with it.
So you get
Yeah.
my point here, which is that comics are not just successful in other parts of the world, they are extraordinarily out of this world successful, and in America they are an utter failure, except for, middle school grade books that are pushed by the big four publishers with simplified art styles, So something is very wrong, and I don't know what it is. I don't really have an answer. I am not an expert, but it's something beyond just, we've gotten woke. That's the tip of the iceberg. The distribution model, the method that we have for creating them is all wrong. Here's one example that just comes to mind here. In Shonen Jump, just Shonen Jump, mind you, which is the biggest, but in Shonen Jump, comics are done in almost entirely black and white, except for specialty issues. I mean, that really should be the industry norm. It just makes way more sense. People are clearly willing to accept it. They don't have an issue with it. That's the type of thing that we should be doing. The fact that that Marvel and DC seem committed to creating specialty cover issues to appeal to collectors is part of the problem. Whereas, just as an example, in Japan, they are always trying to appeal to the widest possible audience they could, sometimes to their detriment. This is not always a good thing, but it's certainly a better thing than what they do in America, which is try to appeal to niche audiences all the time. And in the end, that means they're appealing to really no audience at all.
It's
And
like
that's
you're
exactly
appealing
what we're
nothing.
seeing. Yeah, right? Which
Right.
is exactly what we're seeing. So I forget who pointed out. It might have actually been our good friend and hopefully still watching, Bradford Walker, may have been the one who pointed out that that romances make up a large percentage of shonen manga, as in manga that is marketed towards boys. And this is something that I don't think that America would be able to do. Not that I don't think that America would ever market romance to boys, but they would do it in a way that they would market it as, we're going to try and break gender norms, by marketing romance to boys. And this is the boys' romance because of toxic masculinity. And Shonen Jump markets romance to boys because they've done the tests and boys read this shit. You know, no other reason. No, no, we're gonna have a change in the culture. Just, hey, you know what boys like? Romance.
You know what horror fans like? They like horror. I didn't know if anyone needed to be told that, but I got my lips right up to the microphone. Don't you worry.
But hey, don't worry. We've got I Am Starfire out about how, or I Am Not Starfire. I'm sorry, gotta get that title right because it's about Starfire's obese daughter, ugly obese daughter.
Mariko
And,
Tamaki thought this was her chance to write the Joy Luck Club.
And don't worry, we all are very well aware that that is not Starfire.
We
I
are
believe you.
in agreement.
I believe you. That is definitely not Starfire. And much like, and like other fans of Starfire, which I am not, by the way, but I assume the ones that do exist, nobody will be reading the story about someone who is most definitely and totally not Starfire. Which raises the question, what exactly is the market here? So you got a big thing with a very and obviously this is all rhetorical because we all know the real answer is that there is no market. It's not meant to be bought. It's meant to make a statement. But when you have like this very obese, very ugly, very unpleasant person on the cover of a magazine called I Am Not Starfire about somebody who is most definitely not Starfire, then obviously if you are a fan of Starfire and you look at this, you are most definitely not going to pick up this comic. Because it's sort of like advertising, this is a comic that is not for fans of Starfire. Specifically, not for you. Don't pick this up.
You there, yes, you. I could see your beady little eyes.
This is not for you. And again, this is all rhetorical because I'm not really asking who was this for because we know the answer to that, don't we? Right? Everybody knows the answer. Bradford Walker says the way you sell romance to boys is to play to the male psychological need out of romance to be the knight.
Yep.
Yes, and to be fair, Japan has a major issue here in that the other thing that the other way that's really only half true. That is one way to sell romance to boys. The other way you sell romance to boys is to sell the other male fantasy, which is to be wanted by scores of attractive young women. And thus the harem was born.
You mean all I need to do to get a date is get run over by a truck?
I mean, that's one way. It's certainly in the realm of possibilities.
Is it like the easiest way?
Define easy. Bradford, yeah, so Bradford Walker, like, let's be fair here. I'm not, like, just saying Japan's totally doing it right. I was making a larger point that you can, in fact, sell romance to boys, and it is marketed towards boys, and it is, you know, and it is something that is acknowledged as a thing that boys like. So, so when Bradford Walker says all you got to do is, play to the male psychological need to be the knight. Well, yes, that is one way to do it, but the other way that Japan does it, and they do this all the freaking time, I would argue more often than they make the boy the knight,
In
is to
this
make the
era.
boy, yeah, in this era, is to make the boy the center of the harem. Which is also, admittedly, part of the male psychological need in romance, to be wanted, no matter how much of a putz you are. Sorry.
That's all
Truck-kun is doing a favor to a lot of Japanese boys, says Bradford Walker.
right. That's actually
Truck-kun
pretty
is
funny.
my favorite anime character. Truck-kun is my favorite anime character, obviously.
The
So much
2020s.
personality.
The 2020s are going to rely a lot on Truck-kun, I know it. So, the best.
No, Cirsova got muted.
He
I
did
don't
what?
know why.
My mic has just been a little bit hot for some reason. I moved my laptop and now it's like
Okay, there you are.
So,
It's all good.
So low key though, one of the best manga I'm looking forward to an adaptation of is basically Putin gets isekai'd when some terrorists try to run him over with a truck, but they fail because he is strong enough to judo flip a truck.
the truck died.
Yeah, so the truck person dies, and so what happens is that his statue was actually shoddily built. So after he defeats all the truck coons, and I'm not even joking, he defeats like 3 truck coons. Uh, his statue falls over and smashes him as he gets summoned into another world.
So man, though, that just reminds me of, there was this absolutely awful show called Seis Manos that I tried out on Netflix one day because, Jeff of Mother's Basement foolishly recommended it as like, oh, it's a good send-up of martial arts tropes. It was awful, but it was awful in, I will admit, in a so bad it's good sort of way, because it was really stupid. And they had one scene that was absolutely, like, I'm pretty sure unintentionally hilarious, that involved, like, a guy exploding at a gas station, like a guy exploding. It blows up a gas station. Something from the gas station like shoots off and I think hits a statue, and the statue falls on top of someone and on top of a character, and that character dies. And I laughed for a very long time at that, and I'm pretty sure by the tone of the episode that it was not supposed to be funny. Uh, and I did not watch episode 2, by the way, because I do not recommend Seis Manos. It is a very bad show. but and I don't really understand why anybody would like it. Except unless you want to have an ironic hate watch, I could sort of see it.
I don't have time for ironic hate watches.
Are you watching anything right now?
No.
Cirsova?
Oh, well, I did just finish binging My Hero Academia. I watched the first season of it ages ago, but then I'd kind of dropped off, and I got caught back up through season 4. Also been watching the Viz dub of Sailor Moon with my girlfriend.
Oh, good.
And
I was about to
like
say.
the whole time I'm watching Sailor Moon S, and I'm just like, Dr. Tomoe has an army of just on-demand monster girls that he could just, like, oh, you got a pencil holder? Stick a pencil holder in the machine. You'll get a pencil holder monster girl. How did he manage to screw up taking over the world so bad when he had a make-your-own monster girl machine? He wasted them all fighting middle school girls. He could have just been like, hey, powerful person who pulls the strings behind this or that country, how would you like a monster girl of your own design? I see you have some socks over there. I can make you a socks monster girl.
Cirsova, please, let's keep this. Let's keep this. 18 friendly. Come on, man. Come on. You don't have to talk about thigh highs here. A thigh high monster girl. Oh,
You're describing Ben's exact fantasies.
exact fantasies. Anyway, yeah, like, oh my goodness, that's a conversation in
There's
and of
so,
itself.
I mean, we're reaching just about the end of the stream time, I think. So I will. So I'm not gonna feel too guilty about dragging us off this far off topic when we're this late in. Uh, but there's actually so much good anime airing right now that I haven't started watching. I haven't gotten the motivation quite yet to start watching any of it, even though I'm interested in like a ton of it. When the new episode of Log Horizon finally airs on, I believe, the 13th, that's probably going to be enough to actually get me to get my 1 month free, my new 1 month free trial on Verve, so that I
Verve.
could start yeah, so I could start watching everything, because obviously I don't pay for any of this crap. I free try it, spam it, and or I can. I mean, I know you
He
could
paid
always
for
sell the
you,
7.
Cirsova. Don't you worry.
I did, yes, but I mean, I do everything legally. I mean, you could sail the 7 seas if you want to,
I do.
I suppose, and you have to for B stars right
Yep.
now because it's in Netflix jail. But for most of this stuff, it's actually literally more convenient for me to just make get a new email, you know, go on tempemailgenerator.com and get a new free trial for a month to watch what I want, and because then I can watch it on the Xbox more easily, since that's plugged into my TV, and I don't need to waste an HDMI cord with my computer. And there is so much good
But they're
anime airing right now.
pennies.
What?
HDMI cords are literally pennies.
They are, yes. I'm not saying it's expensive. I'm saying it's a pain in the ass.
Okay.
I'm wasted because then I have to waste my laptop. You know, doing that instead. It's just annoying. It's easier for me to just use a free trial. On Verve, get a new temp email, get a new free trial. All, by the way, entirely legal. I use my real name and everything. I get the free trial, and then I cancel it immediately, and I forget about it. It's a terrific method. Unfortunately, Netflix caught on pretty quick, and now you need to have like a different payment service every time you do it. And Disney Plus as well, but Verve did not. Verve still hasn't caught on. The last I saw, which was, a few weeks ago. So not that long ago. So Verve, I should be fine, I think, still. Uh, and there's so much good stuff out right now. It's actually kind of crazy. There's both series of Cells at Work, both Black and Season 2 of Standard Cells at Work. Log Horizon coming out. Promise Neverland either is coming or just came out. Infinite Skate coming out.
That just came out, actually. I've got it
There you
loaded
go.
up on my
Perfect.
on my computer, we'll say. Are you looking forward to anything coming out, Cirsova?
I don't know. I've kind of not been able to keep up on anime just because like I haven't had time. I mean, watching anime is kind of a big time sink for me with all the stuff I have going on because I usually like to watch stuff subbed, and it's hard to do work while watching subs. So I actually broke down and watched My Hero Academia dubbed after the first season.
The dub for My Hero Academia is mostly excellent.
I do hear that season 5 is going to be coming out in I think March.
Yep. Spring season.
Unfortunately, yes. After season 4, I'm actually like I'm actually kind of unoptimistic about at the very least, I would say I'm cautiously optimistic for season 5.
Season 4 had its problems, but I still enjoyed it.
I did. It's just that My Villain Academia, which is almost certainly going to cover at least be like half of season 5, is some of the best content in the manga. Which I don't know if you've read the manga at all, but that's what's coming up. So there's your teaser, My Villain Academia.
I think I only made it through the training camp arc with the manga because I was reading it from the library and just had not had a chance to pick up anything new.
Well, there you go. So,
only other thing that I'm reading that's new has been Demon Slayer, and I'm just trying to write it out. I'm like, the wheels fell off this a long time ago. I'm just waiting for it to be done. Haven't actually watched past the first episode of the anime.
The
yeah, I
ending
know
was
you
pretty
mentioned
good.
you weren't a fan. You weren't a fan of Demon Slayer, right?
It just ended up with like having a lot of pacing issues, and the manga itself, like it's a very action driven manga, but the action does not really flow very well from one panel to another. So like I said, the people who managed to take the frames of the manga and turn it into keyframe animations, like good on them. They worked some miracles.
See, it's interesting that you mentioned the pacing as an issue, though, because I would have stated that that was Demon Slayer's #1 biggest strength and probably the biggest driver of its popularity was its pacing.
It just never really has time to decompress after the first few volumes because it tries to be its biggest strength to me is its characters, but after about volume 7 or 8 they kind of drop the ball with developing characters, and it's just breakneck. We've got to burn our way through all the numbered villains as quickly as possible.
See, that's fascinating to me that you say that because if you were to ask me, I would have said that Demon Slayer its strength was never its characters, which I thought were always kind of, I don't know, I don't know if mediocre is exactly the right word, but were always very by the numbers.
They
I
were
guess.
by the numbers, but I still considered that a strength because I didn't care for how she drew the action. Like I said, the to me the action was weak because the motion of the action did not flow particularly well, and the art, the panel flow was not great to me. And
So, it's one thing like if you were to ask me about Demon Slayer, I think Demon Slayer is solid. I would give it like a 7 out of 10, and I think that Ben is right about there with me. I think that the anime elevates the material in literally every way.
Yep.
It is an improvement in every aspect of the word.
it's an absolutely
And
beautiful anime, but I would have to say that the manga is pretty mediocre. Its big strength, I think, is that it was an Oriental adventure that came out at a time when most of the fantasy coming out of Japan was highly Occidental. But it's a very very bland generic story. The villains are literally numbered to where they fight the numbers. You get the countdown towards villain number 1. As you said, the characters are really tropey, basic shonen characters. The biggest strength I think of the characters is in the designs. She's really good at character designs and managed to make the characters charming enough, but it just overall it's not as good as everyone says. I know I'm being that guy, but it's an okay book at best.
so, as far as Demon Slayer goes, like I would say I think it's better than okay. I think but I don't think it's any more than pretty good, even at best. I'm not as harsh on it as you, but I'm also not as high on
It
it as
it,
like
it
the
reminds
thing
me a
is
bit of it
the
reminds
thing.
me a bit of as if Kamikaze was longer and a little bit more drawn out and more shonen.
So the problem that I have with Demon Slayer is more like with it has a rabid fan base, and I've been like down that rabbit hole before, and I honestly Demon Slayer like the really completely hardcore Demon Slayer fans, I am convinced, are people where it was like, and I know this is gonna sound condescending, but I don't actually mean it in a necessarily like
Baby's
disparaging
first
way.
anime.
Yeah, exactly. Baby's first shonen. It
Yeah.
sounds it sounds condescending when I say it that way, but I don't actually necessarily mean it as an insult. But as an example, if I talk to people who are like hardcore fans of Demon Slayer, which I have, and I've been on like the forums before, you'll see a lot of them are like blown away by like how they mention how Gotauge Sensei is willing to kill off characters like she does, and my reaction was, were we reading the same thing? She is n- absolutely by the books in the way that she kills off characters, and they talk about, well, there's such a high body count among the pillars. To which my response is, so, and Ben's was as well. So my first thought when I saw the pillars was, oh look, cannon fodder.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and she did not kill any of, and look, spoiler. As if you need spoilers for a story like Demon Slayer. If you like Shonen, you like Demon Slayer. If you don't, you won't. Anyway, she does not kill any of the main characters, including Giyu, who I figured was actually marked for death. If anything, she's actually less brave than I thought she would be in terms of killing off characters. Certainly no more daring than any other shonen author. And this is admittedly, I think, something of a problem in shonen works. Even the great, Tagashi had a big problem with this, I think, in Yu Yu Hakusho and Hunter x Hunter, when he brought back Genkai from the dead in Yu Yu Hakusho, and he brought back Kite from the dead in Hunter x Hunter. Kite especially just struck me as absolutely absurd. Like, I thought Genkai, I think that was a mistake writing-wise. I thought that bringing back Kite just didn't even make sense. And was totally ridiculous, and I have absolutely no clue why he did it.
Probably a character popularity poll. Even though the guy's like,
That's possible.
even though he's very like, Shonen Jump, takes a drag on a cigarette, really spits a man out, something, drama. But
I
like,
mean, he's
he's
ultimately
still
shonen author.
right. He's also still like a mercenary character. Like the Berserk guy actually shows less mercenary tendencies than him or the JoJo guy. Like whatever, for all their complaints, they still knew their business and did a good job with it.
Oh yeah. So, and honestly, to be clear, even the revival of Genkai and Kite, even though I think both of them were mistakes, I don't think either of them were major mistakes. They were just in the realm of things I would not have done. But they certainly didn't like ruin the story or anything ridiculous like that.
Especially since they both like disappeared from their stories.
Yeah, they did. But I thought Kite. I remember when Kite came back, because I was like, people talk about how dark Hunter x Hunter is, and it is, comparatively dark compared to other shonen. When Kite came back, I was like, oh come on, like, how does that even make sense? That's just silly. Genkai 2 was also like she really should have stayed dead. She was a mentor figure who was dying in what should have been a turning point arc. JD Cohen says it's a genre thing. Yes, that's kind of our point. But the point is that I'm making is that you'll hear that when I mention Baby's first shonen. That's one of the things where I go, if you think that Demon Slayer is particularly dark as shonens go, well, I sort of get it tonally. I also have to conclude that you really don't know much about shonens if you think Demon Slayer is particularly dark. It is not. I saw that there were it was another thing too, where like some of the hardcore Demon Slayer fans were disappointed by how the ending went. And my reaction was, really? I thought the ending worked perfectly well. Yeah. I thought it was a pretty decent ending. Like, I didn't think it didn't blow me out of the water or anything, but maybe that's what it was. Maybe the hardcore fans were hoping it would blow them out of the water, and I was just hoping it would wrap up the story in a satisfying way. And it did.
Yeah.
And maybe, like, if you were hoping it would blow you out of the water, no, it did not do that. It didn't, like, go above and beyond. Didn't go plus ultra, right, in its ending. But did it wrap up the story in a way where I was satisfied with how each of the characters ended up, and that I felt the final conflict was climactic enough? Yeah, I think it did. I enjoyed it. I thought it did fine. I think it worked as an ending. But I guess Demon Slayer, though, I think it's pretty good because I never really expected it to be anything more than it was, and its anime adaptation is absolutely killer. I think it's up there with Mob Psycho 100 as one of the great anime adaptations in terms of how it expands on and improves source material.
Yep.
So, like, I look at those two to me are the gold standard because they both have like, you know, good and in Mob Psycho's case, I would argue great. Uh, I would argue great even source material in Mob Psycho's case, but its anime adaptation improves on it in literally every respect. So as far as adaptations go, that and Demon Slayer, which does the same thing in terms of writing quality, is 100% just a huge, massive improvement. JD Cohen says the start of the Chimera Ant is full of depth and bad writing. Yes, I would agree. So Chimera Ant arc is sort of my feelings on Hunter x Hunter as a whole, in that I have a love-hate relationship with it. So the Chimera Ant arc is one of those things where I think that the pacing is really poor. It's way too slow. Takes too long to get going. Has all of this setup. But when I say all of that, I cannot deny that I was promised brilliant things when the Chimera Ant arc actually got going and hit its climax. And even me, who was very cynical and jaded by the time it really hit the climax of the arc, and who was not expecting it to be as good, I had to almost like force myself to admit that actually it was pretty great. Like the climactic scenes of Chimera Ant from Shoot and Knuckles fight with the big red one whose name I don't remember.
It's
the ant
overly
guard.
complicated.
It is, yes. But their fight was fantastic. Netero's fight with Meruem, oh my god, some of the best stuff. It's just so good. When Netero stabs himself in the heart and slouches down, and they have the skull behind him and the eerie music going, and then they just have the narrator. And then the Ant King felt fear for the first time in his short life. And then they zoom out and they just explain how humanity has created this bomb as like the perfect killing machine. How they have the just unbelievable scene with Gon and with Neferpitou, when Gon hulks out into super adult Gon and literally beats Neferpitou to death before Killua comes and sort of kind of talks him down. It's just all so good. If I had a problem with the aftermath of it, I thought that the follow-up arc of that was fine. I thought it was pretty good, but I would have liked to see some more, lasting consequences, I guess, from Gon. But I don't even know. I could be talked out of that if somebody argued with me why it was, appropriate for Gon to react the way he did or whatever. But the climax of the Chimera Ant arc, I agree with you, there's too much going on. I agree that the setup was so long. I agree that the pacing was janked. But the climactic episodes of the arc are some of the best anime ever. It's that it does live up to the hype. And I didn't want to admit it. I was prepared not to say that. I was prepared, I was like all getting ready with my pitchforks and my, artsy YouTube editorial about how why the Chimera Ant arc isn't as good as you thought. And then I finished it, I thought for a moment, and I went, no, actually, that was pretty great. I can't honestly say that it wasn't pretty great. That's my love-hate relationship with Hunter x Hunter.
All right. I'm actually feeling the hour. Cirsova, do you have any final words for us?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Be sure to check out the Kickstarter for our 5th anniversary issue. The winter 2020 issue is already out on sale on Amazon if you want to pick that up. Uh, Be sure to check
Ye-
us out and help us keep going for another couple years.
Absolutely. Anthony, what do you got for us?
Uh, I'm sorry for taking the excuse to take us so far off topic, but then it wasn't until like 10 minutes until after we had already normally ended these shows, so I don't feel too bad.
And for my part, of course, be sure to check out Pinkerton's Ghosts. It is the highest quality of pulp horror out there, and it's not even limited to pulp. I make sure to vary the stories so that each one is its own unique, horrifying experience. The next episode, Mirror Mirror, is up with some mirror clash horror as well as musical references from everything from Michael Jackson to Insane Clown Posse. Anthony's episode, Grim Night. No, wait, not Grim Night. We said we wouldn't use that. Grim Tidings. Grim Tidings.
It's grim tidings as of now until I think of something better.
Yep, which is an Appalachian National Forest horror. And then beyond that, we'll have a Rogues Gallery, The Puppeteer, returning for probably one of the most intense stories Pinkerton's Ghosts has come out with yet. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, Cirsova. You were a fantastic guest as always. Patient with all our meanderings and wanderings. And it's a pleasure. Be sure to tell us when a new project is coming out and we'll have you back on.
All right.